Hey everyone, welcome to the Microsoft Pulse. It is Tom, Tamara, and Adam. Jen may be joining us later, maybe not. We'll just have to see. But we are coming to you guys in the first week of October of 2022 with new roadmap updates. It's been kind of exciting. We had the Power Platform Conference, I guess, a week ago?
Yep.
Um, maybe 2 weeks, yeah, a week ago, and we're coming pretty close to Ignite. So all of us are pretty excited to see what's coming on in the roadmap. We're expect a massive update the week of Ignite, where we'll probably have a show that goes a little bit longer than normal, going through all of the updates and all the new things that have been added. But for now, we're going to go through Ed and take a look at all the new things that have been added through our normal 3 sections. If you're new to the program, or maybe just would like a reminder, the 3 sections, well, I guess technically there's 4 that we're going to be talking about is in development, which means that the product has been added to the roadmap, but they haven't really made any progress towards publishing it out to their users, but they've made the intention that they're developing that product known. Rolling out, which means it's somewhere in the complicated release cycle that is Microsoft. That can be everything from first release, where only if you're buddies with Microsoft do you have it, all the way to everybody but the people who don't want any change going on in their organization have it, to launch, which means if it's scoped to your cloud, everyone should have that information. And then finally, there's canceled, which we do see on occasion. But we typically start and kind of go in order of development. So we'll start in the in development and move on from there. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Tamara to get us started in the in development section.
Fabulous. Couple new things I'm interested in is Microsoft Teams payments in Microsoft Teams. So that's coming out in November is the estimated release date. And it says grow your business by getting paid for appointments, classes, or events you host on Teams with the payment app. Once you connect a third-party service to receive payments, you'll be able to request payment right during a Teams meeting and have customers pay you in just a few clicks. The Payments app is supported for business registered in the United States and Canada at this time. Note, admins can manage availability of the Payments app in the Teams Admin Center. Then we also have delete or rename files in a channel and in your OneDrive folder in Teams. I'm like, we already have that and have had it for a long time.
Kind of thought so when I read that, but I thought maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, so to rename or delete a file in a channel, go to the Files tab and find the file that you want, then select More Options, and then
I
to
kind of
rename or
I
delete the
kind
file
of
from
think this
OneDrive.
is if someone posts like a file into like the channel section, like the chat section of what's going on. I kind of think it's allowing you to rename it and it will like update that link
Mm,
inside of the chat. That's kind of what I think it's implying.
Ah,
Because I just said like we've been clearly been able to delete stuff from OneDrive for a while. But
right.
say we're going through and talking in our channel and I link a file, it's gonna put that hyperlink in the middle of the chat linked back to the file. And I don't
okay.
think those were alterable. I think, for instance, if you just deleted the file, that link was still there and it just didn't work.
Okay, that makes
Ah,
sense.
okay.
It
The
is rather
only other
strange, though,
thing,
that they've got two roadmap entries for that and they look identical.
They're for different
yeah,
clouds. One's for GCC DoD worldwide, and one's for GCC
Oh,
High worldwide.
okay.
yeah.
Never mind then.
And the only other one in development that I wanted to bring up is whiteboard for DoD. Very excited about that. People have been waiting for that for a long, long time.
Every time we
So,
have a roadmap update for Whiteboard, I think of one of my poor customers that I worked with like 4 years ago and just recently reconnect with. They spent like $60,000 on like one of those Microsoft Surface hubs,
Ooh.
being a GCC High customer.
oh
And
wow.
they were told by the rep that they were talking to at Microsoft that Whiteboard worked with the Surface Hub in GCC High, and the documentation in Microsoft said that as well. But if you actually got it, it has a little asterisk next to it, and it was basically the Whiteboard app could be loaded on the Surface Hub, but like it couldn't sign into any of your accounts or tenants or anything.
Wow.
So absolutely. So I always think sympathetically back to my buddies at that company, just because of what happened. So every time I see like them getting closer, I'm like, hey, maybe they can finally use their hunk of metal that's been sitting in the corner of their office. Tom, what
So
do you have for us
there's,
today?
yeah, there's a couple things out there that I saw that look interesting. One is on SharePoint. Site sharing emails will now send from the sharing user's mailbox. So today, the site sharing emails come from no-reply at sharepointonline.com. To improve delivery access, we will start sending those emails from the user's Exchange mailbox as we do for other sharing emails. So I think that's good in the fact that if somebody shares something with me, I'm going to see it come from that person, which is a good thing. And then Microsoft Teams approvals as a PDF can be saved, printed, and transferred. So if you're using approvals, basically, approval creators will be able to save a completed approval request to a PDF file and have the option to print it. This feature will also allow customers to easily transfer their proof of approval as a PDF to another system or store as a file. Again, that just makes for a really good chain of evidence, for lack of a better term, that something did actually occur and that I have a record of it and I'm not going to lose that. And then one final one before I turn it over to Adam is Microsoft Teams creation of contact groups in Calls app. So creation of contact groups are now available in the right rail pane of the Calls app. Users can now create new groups and edit the membership of existing groups via the Call app. So it'll just give you a way to group together some of your contacts and stuff like that, which is a cool thing.
Yeah, so there's two kind of nerdy security admin-y things that I thought were kind of interesting that I wanted to call out because both of the updates, I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. So the first one is a Purview Compliance Center update related to information protection. It's new capacity to scope labels independently of files and emails. What this actually means, if you go in and create MIP labels right now, the scoping that you have is files and emails is one section, and then SharePoint sites and lists is another section. And so you basically can go in and create a label to be used to label emails or SharePoint files and stuff like that, but that's the same label. And typically when you're going through and approaching this, that doesn't always necessarily meet the needs of the organization you're working with. For instance, maybe they want to have some type of labels on the emails that are going out that don't necessarily translate to their files. For instance, maybe you're going to have a classified internal that you're going through and doing on a file. But if you're creating an email, that doesn't necessarily, like, you maybe don't have a classified internal email just due to the nature of what you're going through and doing. But up until now, the labels were published to be available in both of them all the same. As long as you're publishing to the end user, they got the ability to do that in files or email. They're now going to give you the ability to specify and to choose. It basically just gives more customization options or more specificity to the companies that are going out there and trying to leverage labels internally. So always a good thing. Was pretty excited to see that announcement. I have a couple clients that will be happy to hear that when it eventually comes out to their cloud. And the other one that I wanted to mention that I thought was also kind of cool as well. When we're going through and looking at it, they have Teams, or it's going to be, end user reporting of suspicious messages for Microsoft Teams. So right now, if you're using Defender as a tool of what you're going through and doing in Office 365, if a user gets a suspicious email, as I'm sure most people know, you can go in and say, hey, I think this email is suspicious. Hey, this is spam, or this might be phishing. That reports back to Microsoft. Their security teams can go in and analyze it. And if they say, oh, yeah, no, this is spam, they'll try to catch it more likely in the future. This is a crucial process of how email works because Microsoft kind of depends on their giant multitude of users to say, hey, something got through your filters, they need to be adjusted, and that's how they go through and do reporting. Well, that same type of functionality is coming to Teams now, which I think is kind of cool. Teams is becoming more and more prevalent for people to reach across organizations in Teams. As more and more people get onboarded into the Microsoft 365 and Teams platform, I know me and my team in particular talk to a ton of our customers just through chats and Teams. Planet's tenant is open, their tenant is open for communication as well too. So rather than shoot an email, you can just send them a message on chat. Well, as that increases more and more commonly, the ability for people to exploit that is also going to be there. So the fact that they're adding the ability for users to go in and say, hey, I got a message on Teams, but it seems a little sketchy to me or seems a little uncertain, and you can report that to Microsoft security team in the same way you can do email. Pretty cool update.
Cool.
Outside of that, I think it's probably worth mentioning. I don't know if anyone wants to highlight them. Viva got a ton of love and in development
very
this
much.
week.
Yeah.
There is like 7 or 8 different updates related to Viva. This has been a trend we've talked about on the show a little bit before. I know Tom and Tamara have both talked about this, but Viva is Microsoft's new baby. It is a paid service right now that you have to go through and do, but Microsoft, over the last 2 years since it's been released, has heavily, heavily invested in Viva. A lot of the updates that we're seeing going out, they actually did a pretty large blog post about a month ago. A lot of the updates you're seeing coming out are trying to position Viva as this hybrid work tool for people that maybe are working remotely now in a situation they weren't doing previously, and giving them the tools to succeed. But expect this trend to continue. Microsoft is heavily bought into Viva. I know internally, when I talk to people that know Microsoft, there's a big focus to their salespeople for Viva. There's a big focus for their product teams about integrations with Viva and trying to kind of figure how that looks out for their customers. And again, no surprise, there's 8 or 9 different updates to Viva with different tools that they're coming through. Expect that trend to continue. If you haven't got your hands on Viva or haven't got a good idea from it, I'd encourage you to look into it a little bit more. It's this cool medium where, artificial intelligence and machine learning combined with some of the other tools that Microsoft was already developing to give insights that are supposed to make your users more productive in their own right. So worth noting, Viva got a ton of love. Cool. Anything y'all guys want to particularly look at in there?
I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, we can go ahead and move on then. As mentioned at the start, we'll be moving into rolling out. And Tom, you can take us away since Tamara went first last time.
Sure. I've got a couple. One is OneDrive, known folder move for Mac OS. So known folder move is what Windows users have been able to use for quite a while, where you can easily get your desktop documents and pictures folders to sync up with OneDrive. And it's just basically, it's turn it on and poof, it happens. It's great. Well, Macs have not had this capability. Now with this particular feature that's rolling out, you're going to be able to do the same thing with your Macs for what you can do with Windows in terms of getting those 3 main folders moved to OneDrive so they're backed up and controlled in the whole 9 yards. So that's a good one. Then we also have, and the thing is, on rolling out, we've probably talked about a number of these before or mentioned them before, but one that I think is kind of cool, even though I never want to be on hold, is on Microsoft Teams, you're going to be able to use music on hold for call transfers. So you can use music to be played to callers on hold when a call transfer is initiated. So I always enjoy having something going on in the background. So I just go, here, let me transfer you, click.
Right.
Did you hang up on me, or am I just getting dead air because you're in the process? So give me something to let me know I'm still connected to you. I may still be lost somewhere, but give me the illusion that I'm being listened to and that I'll be eventually connected with somebody. So that's a good one too. Tamara?
Great. I like Microsoft Lists, add or update images in Microsoft Lists via Power Apps. So Power App Images controls are now fully connected with image columns in Microsoft Lists, and you can add, update, or delete images from a list via Power Apps. So that is rolling out to everybody in September, so you should see it. And then also Android got some love. So Microsoft Teams update companion mode for Android users for GCC and DoD. So for a better hybrid meeting experience, Teams users on their Android phone can use a single tap to join the meeting on their device and Microsoft Teams Room. So audio on their device will automatically turn off to ensure the echo doesn't happen. Thank you, God. I just spent like 5 minutes in a meeting going, my ears are bleeding. Furthermore, the landing experience on the Android will be optimized for engagement activities to make it easier to raise the hand or react, chat, and see all participants and more. So those are the 2 that I was interested in.
Sure. Microsoft Defender for 365, which is basically the proactive tools that sit on top of Exchange Online and email and stuff like that, got some love. There's quite a few updates sitting in the rolling out phase and kind of going through and looking at what all's related to it, what all it can do. I wanted to highlight a couple of them because a couple of them I think are kind of cool. One in particular that kind of stood out to me was it's called Microsoft Defender for 365 Enforce Authentication to Pass on Anti-Spam Allowed Domains and Senders for Spoof Protection. So this is Microsoft basically admitting that there was kind of a potential flaw in their current design of how they're handling stuff. If you had gone through and created anti-spam systems about what you're going to go through and do, Microsoft would go through and check to make sure that that information wasn't coming to your users unless it thought it was coming from your domain. Now, the issue being there are a lot of legitimate reasons why a domain could exist in more than one location. So maybe you're in a hybrid solution and you do some SMTP sending from your old Exchange servers that you have on-prem, or maybe you're using a third-party service that you're sending out, marketing emails or sending out reports to your clients that's done from another location, but is still legitimately your company. So you want it to be branded and, on your domain. Well, so in the past, if a email came in that showed up to be from your domain, it could basically get around some of the anti-spam protections that existed because Microsoft would basically classify it as an internal email. And so that allowed basically an exploit where if people were sending to a domain that was on Office 365 and making the email look like it was coming from that domain, not all of Microsoft's anti-spam protections were going into place. So this new feature is basically going to say, oh, you're coming from a domain that we own that's hosted there. Well, you need to authenticate with the user account into Office 365 and Azure AD to prove that this is you. And if not, we're not going to allow that internal message to go through. So kind of a cool update. And I didn't even know that exploit existed. So kind of interesting to find it out going through and reading through the updates. So be kind of interested to see how that plays out. And then there's a couple other updates too. Anti-malware policy notifications for government clouds. Shout out to my government clients here. But basically, if you go through and create an anti-malware policy, you can now actually configure recipient and sender notifications if a message is quarantined. The commercial side has had this for a bit, but if you're going through on the government side and you thought something was malware, you didn't notify your users. It didn't give you that option when it went to the quarantine because it was viewed as like malicious. So you don't want to tell your users, hey, someone was trying to send you a virus. You can go view it here. But there are certain cases where you still want to notify certain users or users that, hey, something was caught in case you have a false positive, stuff like that. But ultimately, when you go through and look at it, that's a new update coming out too. Anyone else have anything in rolling out they wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Nope, all good.
All right, Tamara, you want to take us into launch?
Sure. Microsoft Teams live transcript for Teams meetings for the DoD.
I sense
Very
a theme
excited
here.
about that. Very excited about that. And then forms, distribute your forms by using Teams as a new channel. So form users can directly share their polls in their Teams chats and channels right from within Forms for the web. So that was supposed to have rolled out in August for the worldwide tenant. I'm not sure if y'all have seen that.
Actually, I did a 1-minute Office Magic tip yesterday on that because it had showed up in our tenant. Just be really careful because I'm like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and send this to this particular channel. And I had clicked like the wrong button and I ended up sending an email last night to about 435 people going, hey, please fill out this survey form. Oh gosh, really? Did I really do that? And so I turned around, followed it up with the and ignore that. I'm testing a new feature. But it is kind of cool. It gives you a really nice pop-up in the channel that you're looking at that basically says, hey, here you go, instead of you just getting the link, pasted it in there, and it just looks like this little abandoned link that everybody can kind of ignore. So it's a cool feature. I like it. Another one that has been in our client for some time, it was due to roll out in June. I guess they're just getting around to cleaning it up right now. And that is Teams Chat with Self. This is one of those ones, it's taken so much ribbing from people going, how come I want to chat with myself? I don't want to talk with myself.
I use this feature too.
Oh yeah,
I use it all
I
the
love
time.
this feature. I think this is great in the fact that you can just jot quick little notes to yourself in Teams in the chat with self little area, and you can delete them as you're done. So it's kind of like a rolling to-do list, just what you need, another to-do list to look at things. But yeah, I love this feature. Some people, though, are just like, this is the stupidest thing ever. I was like, no, not really. I can list a few more, but this one is actually a good one. So that one should be out to everybody. And also, if you look at your call history in Teams and you see stuff out there that you really just don't want to continue to see in the history, you now have the ability to actually delete those call history records just by right-clicking and doing the delete. So just kind of a way to clean things up and make your call history look a little more coherent and cleaned up if that's something that matters to you.
Cool. From my side, there was several things listed that I thought was kind of cool, but I'll mention a couple of them that I thought probably need to be highlighted. Reports in the admin center, the API is going to be available to manage user group and site names. Basically, there's going to be an API released if you do your own coding that's going to allow global admins to change how user group and site names are displayed in the admin center based on their organization's privacy practices. So I think this is actually pretty cool. If you maybe don't want to show full usernames to everything that's going on to certain admins inside of your system, you'll have the ability to go in and configure this in a customized way using an API, which is just a pretty cool thought and something that's I see this as almost like future development when you're going through and talking about what Microsoft can do, just because the average system wouldn't do this. This is only something you get once you've really reached like advanced levels. So just kind of nice to see some of those new things coming on for the people that actually have that concern from a privacy standpoint. And then another thing that I thought was actually kind of cool going through and looking at it, the ability to delete call history in Teams. Everyone in everyone on my team has enterprise voice and has Teams calling, because that's a way that we can give a phone number to our clients so they can reach out to us. As long as you have the Teams app on your phone, it still links on your cell phone, but you don't have to give out your actual personal cell phone number. But you'd be surprised how much just random bullshit calls you get, spam and stuff like that fills it up. So the ability to go through and delete out messages inside of the call history and go through and do that. I'm slightly OCD. I don't like seeing like missed calls and stuff like that. But if I'm in a conference call with the customer and a call comes in and it tells me it's a spam risk and is a local San Antonio number, I'm not going to drop off the conference call I am with my customer with. But then I have this notification of a missed call with this red number in my thing that's really annoying. So my OCD likes that update going through. Anyone else have anything in launched?
Nope, you can go ahead and start with the whole clean or cancel if you want to.
Yeah, so there are an absolute ton of canceled items. I'm guessing this is all in preparation for what we're coming through and seeing coming forward with Ignite. There are so many canceled items that we are not going to be able to go through and talk to everyone. In fact, we have, let's see here, we have 31 canceled items, maybe, or at least that's in the list. Maybe we don't actually go linear.
Items?
Yeah, I think we do. It does actually look like it counts. It starts on our list at number 60 and goes all the way down to 91. So
Maybe
there are
we just group them together.
Yeah, there are just a ton. Does anyone have anything in particular that was surprised to see canceled that they want to point out?
No, I thought it was kind of interesting where a lot of them, you see the information, then at the end it says this feature will be republished with an update if appropriate. So a lot of the Microsoft search stuff ends up having that thing there. Excel queries task panes, Microsoft Teams support open text question poll for Teams. A lot of them are just like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and put this back out here later. And if you look at the fact that the releases are like March of this year, January of this year, February of this year, it sounds like they just had things that never quite made it out of development. And they just said, yeah, we're just going to pull this for right now.
I could also see some of these features being surfaced in another product or another experience, or maybe they're trying to package them into stuff that like Viva does.
Right.
But it's stuff that we won't get on updates until potentially something like Ignite. But
Right.
So they're not going to go in and update the roadmap and list out the new features and product names and stuff before they get close to Ignite to announce everything, but it doesn't make sense to keep the information on the updates if it's going to be encapsulated under another experience or something like that. I'm sure there's some of that too. Now, with that said, I have no idea which of these 30 things fall into that, but obviously they're doing some cleanup coming before Ignite. So not that excited. I think this might be the most canceled items we've ever seen. But the trend of going through and cleaning up the roadmap a little bit before Ignite, which again, after Ignite comes out, you can probably expect 100 new things added to the roadmap in the next week or two after that. Kind of normal, at least, to see that. So,
Yep.
well, that's been Pulse for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed going through and looking at the roadmap. I know the three of us are super excited for what's coming in the next month or so as we go through and see. This is always an exciting time of year when we're hitting the new fiscal year for Microsoft and they're coming out with all the new features and stuff that we can go through and see. So hopefully you guys are excited with us, and make sure to stay tuned as we go through and look at all the updates. One of the things I'll give a shout out to as well, if you have not signed up online, you can get free virtual admittance into Ignite. So all of us encourage you guys to do that. Tom is going to be speaking down in Branson the week of.
So is
So is
Tamara.
Tamara. Actually, I guess they're both going to be there talking. So if you're happening to go to the North American Collaboration Summit, which would make sense. In fact, you can't even really buy a ticket to go to Ignite. So if you happen to be in the Branson, Missouri area, that's going to be a wonderful conference. Funnily enough, a lot of world-class speakers that would maybe normally be at Ignite are going to be at Branson because they had signed up and agreed to go to the North American Collaboration Summit before anything with Ignite was ever announced. So if you're going to be in the area, I'd encourage you guys to check it out. Outside of that, sign up for your online virtual registration for Ignite. Even if you can't watch stuff during the week because you're busy, you can go back and watch VODs later, which I've always found to be super helpful. And I think it was last year, if it wasn't last year, it was the year before, just by having a virtual admittance ticket into Ignite, which was free to do, they let you take a certification exam for free, which is like $160 value or something like that.
Wow.
So I would encourage everyone to sign up in case they do something like that again. And even if not, just going back and watching the VODs and stuff later is great. I will tell you guys, as someone who does presentations and learning sessions with clients and does conferences and stuff, you can also, if you have a login to Ignite, typically download all the slides from any Ignite presentation as well too, which is just beautiful. So I'd encourage everyone to do that. But besides that, hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.